Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life.
Today, we're going deep on, well, one of the most, frankly, audacious crimes we've seen in years. That incredible daylight robbery at the Louvre in Paris.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just any robbery, the target, history itself, centuries of it. It's really blown open this whole debate about protecting priceless heritage today.
Yeah, we're talking about 8 pieces of jewelry, right? Including bits of the French crown jewels, stuff that belonged to Napoleon, Empress Marie-Louise. The value is just staggering, $102 million.
A breathtaking sum. And irreplaceable, really.
So our mission today really is twofold. First, how did they pull this off? The sheer boldness, the almost theatrical method they used, construction tools for a jewel heist.
Right.
And then the second part, which is almost just as surprising, is how fast the investigation moved. 2 arrests just over a week later. How did that happen?
It's the perfect storm for analysis, isn't it?
Yeah.
Highly organized crime, immediate international manhunt, and maybe most importantly, it exposed some pretty uncomfortable vulnerabilities at a place everyone thought was Fort Knox.
Okay, let's unpack this then. The target first. The Apollo Gallery. I mean, it's stunning visually, but how did they zero in on those specific 8 items?
Well, the location's key. The Apollo Gallery, it houses some truly world-class gems. The pieces they grabbed. Crowns, necklaces, earrings, brooches, thousands of diamonds. But it's not just the diamonds. It's the history, the provenance, the Napoleon connection, French royalty. That's what makes them invaluable. And crucially, impossible to just sell on the open market.
And the method. That's the part that gets me. This wasn't some sneaky after-dark job. This was October 19th morning, museum just opened. Busy time.
Exactly. They used that normalcy, that bustle, as their cover. Sources say 4 suspects, convincingly dressed as maintenance workers.
Okay.
They showed up with this big vehicle. Police called it a mobile freight elevator. And, this is clever, their own metal ladder.
So they just rolled up looking like they belonged and bypassed all the front door security.
Pretty much. And get this.
Yeah.
They didn't just bring the gear. They put down those bright orange construction cones all around the area. Instantly creates this bubble, right? People just see cones, assume it's official work, and walk around. It plays on like our city instincts.
Wow. Using a simple traffic cone to basically become invisible while prepping a $100 million heist, that's something else.
The simplicity is the genius part. Ladder up to the 2nd floor, Apollo Gallery level, take out an angle grinder, break a window, pow.
An angle grinder. Loud.
Yeah. And then they used it again inside. Smashed the reinforced glass on 2 specific display cases. Napoleon jewels, French crown jewels, the whole thing, start to finish. Less than 10 minutes.
Less than 10 minutes. That tells you they knew exactly where to go, what to hit, precision.
Total precision. And the escape was just as bold. 4 suspects, motorbikes, gone. Last seen heading southeast out of Paris on the A6 towards Lyon.
Which is why the French culture minister, Rachida Detaille, called it a simple but spectacular operation. Simple tools, spectacular target.
Exactly. And President Macron didn't mince words either, calling it an attack on a heritage. That really elevated and made it a national issue, not just a burglary.
And that immediate political reaction put a huge, uncomfortable spotlight right back on the Louvre, didn't it? Suddenly, everyone's asking about their security.
Oh, absolutely. The Louvre director, Laurence Descartes, had a pretty rough time in a Senate hearing. Had to admit, basically, that large parts of their security system were badly outdated.
And there was that specific failure with the cameras, right, near where they broke in.
Yeah, that detail is pretty damning. The only exterior camera near the break-in point. It was facing the wrong way.
You're kidding.
Nope. Officials said that cost them precious minutes in response time. When the whole heist is under 10 minutes, well, you see the problem. A few minutes lost is everything.
That's just a basic failure. But the Interior Minister, Laurent Nunez, he seemed a bit defensive about calls for, putting police inside the museum permanently.
He did push back on that. His argument was, look, the nearest police station is super close. Officers are there within 3 minutes of the alarm. So his point was, even if police were stationed inside for a 10-minute smash and grab, it probably wouldn't have changed the outcome much.
I don't know. Doesn't that ignore the deterrent factor? Just seeing uniformed officers? It's the Louvre, holding priceless artifacts.
It definitely highlights that tension, budget versus preservation.
It's also worth remembering the Louvre does have an internal security force, 52 members, permanent.
Right, but they're firefighters, aren't they?
Exactly, firefighters, not law enforcement.
So the primary internal team for a jewel heist is the fire brigade. What does that signal about priorities?
Well, it suggests the historical focus was, understandably, on fire, evacuation, protecting the building itself from, like, elemental threats, high-level crime prevention. That was maybe seen as more the national police's job.
An oversight, to say the least.
Clearly. But the good news, if you can call it that, is they're fixing it. Big time. Right. Tell us about the investment, because this is where reaction turns into action.
They're launching this massive security overhaul starting early next year. The price tag is huge. 80 million euros. That's about, what, 93 million US dollars?
Wow.
Yeah. Refurbished command centers, way more cameras, better surveillance networks. And you have to assume a serious rethink about who's guarding the actual jewels. It's practical, but it's also, frankly, a political message. This won't happen again.
That's a serious chunk of change. Shows they get how bad this looked. But, okay, the story doesn't end there. The thieves got away, but not for long. Just over a week later, arrests.
That's right. Saturday evening, October 25th.
Yeah.
A really quick turnaround, credited largely to that specialized unit, the Paris Brigade, for the repression of banditry, the BRB.
Yeah.
8 days to crack a case like this.
Yeah.
Pretty remarkable.
How did the BRB do it? Seemed like a slick operation.
They were all over it immediately. Collected something like 150 forensic samples from the scene, not just fingerprints, DNA traces, fibers, anything biological.
Yeah.
From the entry point, the smashed cases, tools left behind.
Okay. And what was the smoking gun? The key piece of evidence.
A motorcycle helmet. They left one behind. Probably in the rush to switch vehicles or something.
Ah, sloppy.
Bingo. Investigators pulled DNA from the inside lining. Got a match. One of the suspects was already in the system from past burglaries.
Wow, so this elaborate plan, foiled by a single discarded helmet and good forensic work.
That's often how it goes, isn't it? Once they had the match, boom, full surveillance, physical, digital on the suspect. That's when it shifted from forensics to tracking people.
And who are these guys? What do we know about the two they arrested?
Both French nationals living in Saint-Denis, that suburb of Paris. Like we said, both had priors for burglary. So career criminals maybe, but maybe not quite the international masterminds they fancy themselves.
Yeah.
And crucially, dual citizenship. One France Mali, the other France Algeria.
And that dual citizenship, that became key to catching them, right?
Absolutely critical, because the investigation moved so fast they caught them trying to flee. One guy nabbed right at Charles de Gaulle Airport, literally about to board a plane to Algeria.
Well,
Yeah. The second one was caught just as he was trying to travel to Mali. They were using those second nationalities to try and get out of Dodge fast.
incredible timing by the police and border forces. Saved a huge headache. Minister Nunez praised the investigators, obviously, but the prosecutor wasn't too happy about how the news broke.
Yeah, that's an interesting angle. If we connect this to the bigger picture, you know, how these big investigations run, the Paris prosecutor, Laure Becourt, she was worried.
Worried why?
She had hoped the massive media attention before the arrests would actually make it harder for the thieves to move or sell the jewels. Too much heat? Maybe they'd just sit tight on the loot.
Ah, okay. But the news of the arrests getting out immediately.
Exactly. Becourt publicly called it a hasty disclosure. She was worried it would tip off the other two suspects still out there. And, maybe more importantly, anyone holding the actual jewels. Give them a heads up to ditch the evidence, break down the pieces.
Which leads us right to the massive blinking question mark hanging over this whole thing. Arrests, yes, great. But the jewels, the $102 million worth of history, still gone.
And that's the bottom line, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the ultimate measure of success here. And, right now,
Yeah.
it's not a success on that front. The big fear among experts is that the items are already being dismantled.
God, that's awful to think about.
It is. You break down those crowns, melt the gold, sell the stones individually. The history, the connection to Napoleon is just gone forever. They just become raw materials.
And the police aren't just looking for the other two guys, are they? They're still looking inside the Louvre.
That insider question is very much alive. They're actively trying to figure out if someone inside the museum helped them. Given how specific they were, which cases to hit, the timing, knowing about that camera blind spot, it suggests pretty detailed inside knowledge, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So the hunt for the other two continues, but figuring out if there was an insider, that's just as crucial.
So what does this all mean? We've got this crazy paradox. A super ambitious crime, construction tools meet crown jewels, but tripped up by basically human error, leaving DNA behind.
It really shows that tension, doesn't it? Sophisticated planning versus simple mistakes. And that $93 million security upgrade. That's the museum acknowledging, okay, we can't stop every possibility, but we have to modernize against this kind of sheer audacity.
The speed of the arrests was impressive, stopping those two from leaving the country. But like you said, that speed just kind of highlights what's still missing.
Absolutely. For the BRB, the whole focus now has to be on the loot. Where are those jewels? So yes, praise for the arrest is deserved. But the fact that $102 million in priceless artifacts is still out there and two suspects nearly got away, it raises a really big question for you, the listener, to think about. When we talk about justice for stolen heritage, what does success really mean? Is it catching the bad guys? Or is it only truly successful when the history itself, the artifacts, are actually recovered and brought back? That's the question hanging over the Louvre right now.
Don't forget to like and subscribe for the next episode on While We Were Distracted.